All right, all right, all right. Welcome in Toilets to Titles. This is episode number 168. We have a lot to talk about this evening. We're
Yes.
talking reactions to the NFL Combine. There was a whole lot to dig through for the Combine. We're doing a 2 round mock draft with a few great analysts as well as a bunch of members of Toilets to Titles, and one of them is with us this evening. So we're going to touch on that a little bit. And there's also a lot of buzz. Free agency is like a few days away. And man, like this is the busiest time of year. Free agency is a few days away. There's a bunch of rumors. There's a bunch of trade speculation. We got some franchise tags. We got some exclusive tags. So we have a whole lot going on. We're going to try to cram it into this episode. But the great thing about being a part of this network is we don't have to cram it all into this episode because we're going to have another episode. We got On the Clock Thursday. We're going to be doing a free agency series next week. So we don't need to squeeze it all in. We're going to try to break down for you what we can, and we're going to do it as good as we can. We're not going to rush through all this stuff. So you're going to hear a lot of our analysis. And this evening, we are lucky to be joined by our guy, man, the ambassador. So Jim Nagy, he's an ambassador of Mobile, Alabama for sure. But this is our ambassador from Mobile, Alabama. It's Brian Bosarge at Deep Fried Draft on the Twitter, member of DraftCountdown.com. Brian, what's cooking?
Hey, man. Yeah, glad to be on here with you guys. Yeah, Jim Nagy, he might be the ambassador, but I've been here longer, man.
Yeah. Well, I gave you the title, but Brian, he threw the wickedest curveball Senior Bowl week. And luckily, me and Moon we were kind of savvy and privy to what was going on. He told the guys, "Hey, the year prior with the breakfast, it was too hard to meet the players. So he's like, hey guys, I think the breakfast isn't going to be too good." And he winked at me and Moon. And me and Moon made sure to show up, and we went to the breakfast. So we had access to about 40 players, and he got us in the back door so that Nino and Jared would stay back and they wouldn't get all the interviews because they got all the interviews the day prior. So we really appreciate that. We slipped Brian a few bills in his back pocket so he can get that done. So we could get Nino, that shark, to stay back. But that was absolutely incredible. And I'm also here. I name dropped him a few times. This is my co-host. This is the Moon Man at FF_Moon Vibes on the Twitter. Moon, what's cooking?
What's up, man? I'm excited for another episode. I don't know how many that we've done so far, but everyone has been jam packed and full of energy since we've been here. We got my guy up there. That's my guy right there. I told him that when I was in Mobile, he was my favorite person that I met down there in Mobile, and he is like, "Oh man, you're too kind and all this stuff." But I'm like, "I'm serious." Like,
Yeah.
you know who I was exactly, like instantly. I didn't have to say who my name was, anything. I know exactly who he was. So I'm excited to have him as part of the draftcountdown.com and everything that they do, getting us prepared for the draft and pick his brain and his thoughts about tonight's show and our agenda for tonight's show.
Man, well, it was good people. Like, so it's funny, like you align yourself with good people and you meet good people, you know what I mean? Like linking up with Shane, and Shane is like, he's one of the best people I've met through the industry. And I met Brian through Shane. Shane's good people, Brian's good people. Met Moon through KT, who I met through Nino. So it all works out, man. I love how like my web just continues to get longer and longer, and keep getting linked up with awesome people. We have a few awesome viewers right now in the comments right now. We got Chris's videos, who's been around like for the longest time, and he just commented 1,000 subs soon. And yeah, we're very close. We're at like 946, and we have like Nino, Jared, D-Now. Jared, you also know as Boomer. Like those dudes, they were at the combine. We got some last second credentials, and we're trying to work to get to the NFL draft. And we're going to be a lot more prepared when we go to that, because the combine, we got credentials like 4 days before the combine. And D-Now and Boomer, they saw like the bat signal. They got down there. Nino was working all week, and he still managed to get like 100 shorts up there. And all that grinding got us from 900 to 946 in like 6 days. So very appreciative of that. This thing's growing. D-Now, I do see you in here. Steve, man, Steve Evans, Funkle Steve, all of you know him. You know, he's Justin's uncle. Justin's away right now. Justin had 4 tests he's been cramming for. That's why he stepped away. 3 of them he's passed so far. He's got 1 more, so he's going to be out for at least 3 more weeks, and then he's going to be joining me and Moon And man, he's already passed 3 or 4, so that's excellent, good for him. But anyway, Funkle Steve has been Patreon since day one. If you want to help us out, you want to be a member of the team, you want to help us when we go to things like the draft, we go to the combine, we go to Senior Bowl, eventually Shrine Games, bowl games, all that stuff. Go to patreon.com/toilets to titles. You can read through the tiers. There's anyway from $3 a month to $20 a month. That'll get you into the Gilded Chat. It'll get you some extra content, some extra access to us, and it'll also get you into Frankenstein, which after the NFL draft, it gets into Frankenstein mode where we start building our monster. We're going into year 4. You want to know what Frankenstein is? It's our listener league. It's absolutely bananas. And we have so much to talk about this evening that I don't want to spend too much time talking about it because it's like a can of worms. It's absolutely crazy. And if I try, I'll just get carried away. So just go check out the Patreon and we'll get you caught up. Check out Apple Podcasts. Throw us a 5-star review. That'll also get you to Frankenstein. If it's a good enough one, you DM it to us on the Twitter, me at Coach Sheps or Moon at FF_Moon Vibes. We'll look it over. If it makes us giggle, it's a $25 entry fee that you'll get in for free. So do it. It's worth it. It helps us out. So I think that's all semantics. I do want to let you know the show is brought to you by Real Ones Productions. Our family is the CFB Nation. Boomer's got his Oklahoma show. I know Nino. What's Nino's Nebraska show called?
The black shirt breakdowns.
What did he talk about? This week he was talking offensive line, man. I've never seen somebody
he's
talk
about
offensive.
the guys.
Right?
He's talking about the guys with the big bellies.
Right. For like 15, 20 minutes, like this dude's I've never heard somebody so passionate. And you know what he's really like, the nicknames he comes up with on the fly. I feel like behind his computer screen, he must have a list of just like randomly generated nicknames because some of the things he comes up with just comes to him too quickly. You know what I mean? Like it's a skill. But,
I'm envious of Nino. The man can pull for Oregon, Kentucky, Nebraska. How many other Colorado? How many other teams can this man pull for?
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't do that.
Yeah, well, he's like, you know what? I don't know if it's players that like draw him to the team, and then he becomes like super. So I know Colorado, it was Deion. You know, when the first time I ever had him on this show, he was wearing a Deion Sanders jersey. So I know he's affiliated. So I think his affiliations to individuals, then he adopts the team. So it's not so much like I bleed this color. It's, you know, I like this and now I want to support it. So however you know what, we'll have to ask him, Brian, next time we're all on the show together, like how does he do it? Because I know for me, I can kind of do that with college, but I also can't get as passionate about him at it as he does. Because if I do, then it becomes like a bleed that color situation. And I can only afford to do that on Sundays. I bleed blue. If I did that on Saturdays as well, I would just be miserable because when the Cowboys lose or, you know, they're just having a rough go at it, it like ruins my week. Is that how it is with you with the Bengals, Brian?
Oh, no doubt about it. I had to take a sleep aid after the AFC Championship game, or else there would have been no sleep that night for me.
Man, yeah, but you guys. So let's briefly touch on the Bengals, and then we're going to touch on some offseason news because Brian's a Bengals fan. We brought him on here because he's from DraftCountdown.com. He knows his stuff. He's a draft analyst. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into the combine. You have any expectations for what you think that Cincinnati Bengals will do this offseason? How they're going to progress to try to get over the hump next year?
I almost feel like for them to operate properly, so to speak, or how I think that they should operate, they need to get Burrow's deal done in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like before free agency starts, they need to have Burrow's deal done because you need to know what your future cap hits are going to be so you can get the extension done for Higgins, which I think will get done. I think Duke Tobin and them shut it down proper at the combine. They're not trading T. Higgins, and that's just every team's wanting T. Higgins and speculating. It's not happening. But I think they'll get a deal done for Higgins. Von Bell, I think they'd like to get done before free agency starts as well.
You prefer him over Bates?
It's not a matter of prefer. It's a matter of what's going to happen.
But do you prefer him over Bates?
No, I mean, I think Bates is a better player, but Bates is going to get I would imagine someone like Cleveland or.
Well, that's the thing. He's going to go. It's like Cleveland. It's addition by subtraction, and then also just addition in general because they're taking him from you and then they're adding him to their roster.
But when the moment they drafted Dax Hill in round 1 last year, Bates was gone. That door was shut.
Dude, I love Dax Hill.
And I do too. But I think that's why they drafted him last year. They knew the Bates was over. Bell, I think, is more of a locker room guy as well, in addition to how well he's played. So I think that's why they'll get the deal done for Bell to be the. I really wish we could have got to see more out of Tyson Anderson as a rookie last year, but he was injured all season to kind of see. And maybe then you could have, if you would have saw anything out of him, you could have maybe even afforded to let Bell go.
Right. Well, that way with Dax didn't come on really until the end of the season as well, right? Like he didn't get coming out of the gate. Dax Hill reminds me a lot of Brian Branch. I think he's a little more. I don't think he's as cerebral as Branch. I think he's more like Branch is aggressive. Branch knows how to form tackle. Branch will hit, but I think Dax is a little more twitched up. He's got a quicker trigger, But so I think there's
Much
some
more
trade-offs.
athletic.
So there's some trade-offs to their game, but you could play either of those guys in similar positions. They're going to play them a little differently, but they're both very versatile. So I think where you guys got Dax Hill to me reminded me either of a Patriot or a Raven. Like guys that fit perfectly into their systems defensively. And when you got him in Cincinnati, I love pieces like that. But I also agree with the Joe Burrow thing. You have to get him signed, man. So Daniel Jones, 4 years, 160. So thank you for segueing us kind of into that. So 4 years, 160, but that's the cost of a quarterback, man. That deal is going to seem crazy until the next guy gets paid. So you want to get Joe Burrow paid so it can seem crazy March 9th. You don't want it to seem crazy September 1st. You
Right.
want three other that's the way it works. Everybody goes bananas. Oh, Daniel Jones didn't set the market. Usually the next man up sets the market. That's the way it works with the agency and the NFLPA. Like they want to get their guys paid. They want to push the contracts up. They want to push up the salary cap. It's always set the market. So you want Burrow to set the market now, so he's not the last guy to set the market, because then it's a steal, correct?
Right. And if Burrow sets it, goes ahead and sets it, and I think we anticipate he's probably going to get 48, 50 million per, probably, if I had to guess, then Herbert's going to come along right after and reset what Burrow did.
Right.
And then what people are like, how are the Bengals going to be able to afford to pay Burrow and Higgins and all this? The cap's fixing to go through the roof again. You're not the YouTube TV Sunday ticket money is fixing to kick in. The new TV contract money is going to kick in. The cap's going to keep going up and up and up. So even at Burrow, let's just say 50 per. That's going to be a drop in the bucket here against the cap 3 years from now.
Right. 100%. But this also now brings us into the Moon Man's team, and that's the Atlanta Falcons. The Baltimore Ravens, they put the exclusive tag on Lamar Jackson, so anybody can go out and make him a deal. If he agrees, the Ravens can match it. And if the Ravens don't match it, that team owes the Ravens 2 first-round picks. Everyone's coming out and saying they don't want Lamar Jackson, which is absolutely crazy. You're calling that cap. Atlanta Falcons, talk to me.
All right, so this is what I'll take the audience into. When I first heard about this, I thought to myself a couple of things. Well, there was franchising people throughout the entire combine. Why did they wait until when we finished to complete the combine for this news to drop? Like the timing of it felt weird. And then I was watching the Atlanta Falcons press conferences for the NFL combines, and Terry Fontenot was speaking. Arthur Smith was speaking as well. But I watched Terry Fontenot's press conference, and one thing that was abundantly clear within the first 2 to 3 minutes of me watching was that they were non-committal to Desmond Ridder. And it wasn't like we don't have an appreciation for Desmond Ridder, but it's like they were non-committal. They said that we were going to add on into our quarterback room, whether it's from the draft, multiple from the draft, free agency. They said whether it was a veteran player as well, they were going to add into the room because they feel like they have to add all across the board. So when I see this news break out and it's almost instantaneous, like the Falcons are not interested in him, even though we have the cap space in order to be able to fit his contract. But we had rumblings to him even going back to last year. We were already in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes, and as much as Terry Fontenot and the organization want to admit it, but y'all pursued Deshaun Watson, whether it was even turning your interest to him. You turned your head and you looked at him. You caught a look. So you're in that race. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, what do we believe? Because I just said in the press conference that y'all trying to explore quarterback is definitely a position that y'all feel like we have to explore. Now all of a sudden y'all don't want, and then it's like, okay, well, hey Moan, well, draft capital. They got to give up 2 first-round picks. Shoot, give them number 8 this year. Give them our first-round pick next year. Like we Gucci. Like we can still make it work. I don't understand, but it's so many different layers about this to unpack. But from the Atlanta Falcons side, I'll just come out and say, I know Diana Rossini came out and said that this is what it is, but I'm gonna politely say cap. I'm gonna say that's cap
Well,
based on what I've seen with my own eyes
yeah,
in the
and
press conferences.
think about your offensive weapons, how young they are. Like you still have Pitts, what under possibly
Look,
3
we
more
got
seasons before
we
owing
got
him a
Pitts.
contract.
We
London
got
4 seasons before owing him a contract. Like you have time before you got to pay these guys.
Tyler Algier just got cooking with us last year,
Right,
and
but
we
that's
know
not even a
they
guy
said
you're worried about paying. Like
no,
you
but I
use
know,
them and
but
let them
they're
go.
gonna bring him in. They're gonna bring new talent in. Like the
Yeah.
Falcons gonna bring in another running back. I've
Right.
already prepared my heart for that.
Well, who
But
did the Falcons take in the 2-round mock draft just now in the
they
second
took
round?
Jameer Gibbs.
That's it.
But
That's it.
I felt like he just fell in my lap. So I didn't want to like it just made sense for me. I didn't want to pass. And the players at that spot, I was like, I don't want to take a tight end. I don't want to really a Dalton Kincaid. It
Right.
was like between Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, Jameer
Right.
Gibbs, and
Right.
someone else I can't forget. But
I think Gibbs is a good fit with Algier. What you said it was
it was like a smash and dash
smash
combo.
and dash. I like it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I only say it because it can support him. Arthur Smith is a run heavy coach.
Right.
Like he wants to run the ball. I've had to like shift my tendencies and my thinking of being a Falcons fan because the days of Matt Ryan was so pass happy.
Right.
So it's been a philosophy switch that we've been seeing that they're more run heavy. They
Right.
want to run. They want to lean into the play action. They want to that's why we seen Desmond Ritter be successful last year. Like
Well,
towards the end, like play
was
action.
that because of the quarterback situation, or is that
No, they're gonna
really?
run play action and they're
Yeah.
gonna run the ball regardless. I
Right.
think that they show that their identity
I don't
is
know,
that
but
they want
you
to run the
draft
ball.
Kyle Pitts, then you draft Drake London. There's
Mhm.
somebody over there who's interested in letting it fly.
Cool.
You know what I
Uh,
mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, hey, listen, we do have talent. Like we have high draft capital in our talent that we have.
right.
Jake London, Kyle Pitts. Even if you look at our
London's
offensive
a
lineman,
dude. London's a dude.
McGrary, like in the mock draft, I had us taking Paris Johnson at that 8 pick. And my thought process was that McGrary is a free agent, and I'm not sure about how they're gonna bring him back or if they are bringing him back.
Right.
So I'll plug and play. I'll plug him in and play next to the rest of the linemen I got, like Lindstrom, for example. So I had them taking offensive linemen in the mock, but they're
Right.
really in a position where they can pick whatever they want. Like BPA, you can go team need. Like I don't really think that we have as many team needs as the media,
Right.
national media might suggest.
Right.
Like we were in pretty much the only game that I look at this past season that was an absolute blowout was a game that we played against Deep Fried Drafts team, Mr.
Yeah.
Brian's team, against the
Yeah.
Bengals.
Right.
And they cooked us
Right.
all day long. They
Right.
cooked us. That was bad for us. But
Right.
other than that, we was competitive. Like one score in 13 plus games. So I just look at it like we're right there on the edge. But I
There's
don't
a
think that they're gonna blow money off of blow money in the cap. They're gonna be
right.
very strategic. But if that's that, maybe that's the point of the Lamar Jackson conversation. That maybe they don't want to do it because they don't want to allocate this much money to him for that quarterback position when I can
Right.
just go
But
draft.
if you're owning that team too, you bring in Lamar Jackson, jersey sales, and I know it affects the salary cap, but you're blowing that much
Mhm.
money, you're going to be making a whole lot of money. You bring Lamar Jackson in. There's another team though, besides the Falcons, that I think is on the cusp as well, and they're flying a private jet out to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and this is the New York Jets. Woody Johnson, Joe Douglas, Robert Salah, Nathaniel Hackett are all on an airplane flying to meet this dude who's like was on a trip, like for all intensive purposes. Like this dude was in a cave. Like Aaron Rodgers, if I'm the Jet staff, if I'm Woody Johnson, the team owner, like I'm the one paying the bills. As soon as I find out Lamar Jackson's available, I'm rerouting the flight. Like if I need to stop and fuel up, I'm stopping and fueling up. I'm not going to Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's going to cost me just as much. Maybe not in draft picks, but financially. Go get Lamar. Are you crazy? You're going to spend that much for Aaron Rodgers. He's 40 years old and all the drama that comes with him. And Lamar Jackson, he's quiet, does his job, a little bit flashy, but he's nowhere near and also, who do you think is going to handle the New York media more? Lamar Jackson, being in Baltimore, it's a city. It's a lot more like New York City than Green Bay, Wisconsin is. So he probably knows how to handle the media. He knows how to handle the scene. It's obviously a much bigger city. But I think Lamar Jackson will be able to handle the ups and downs of being in New York a lot more. But whatever. We're not going to waste our time with this. We'll see what the Jets do. The Dallas Cowboys were rumors. That's my team. So we talked about Brian. We talked about Moon. Supposedly, every year they throw the Cowboys' names in with big-time free agents. And I think agents do this to draw up the market because they know everybody's going to talk about them. And that's frustrating as a Cowboys fan because I get my hopes up. You guys heard me before the show. I do. But I also try to be practical. You know what I mean? So I know when I try to sense when it's BS or when it's legitimate. I think DeAndre Hopkins is legitimate because we can flip few switches.
He was working out with Dez.
That's not the only, but that's one of them. He's in Dallas. He's clearly interested, so that's a big part of it. Because in the past, big names weren't interested. Until the last 4 or 5 years, Dallas started to become a decent landing spot again. But there was a while no one wanted to come here. But I think Hopkins is interested. I think the draft capital. I think the money. Also, they're going to want to. I think Dak is going to restructure his contract. It's going to be a little bit longer, but it's going to free up a lot of cap space. I think he's going to do this under the premise that they're going to get him another weapon. Hey, give us some money back. Well, he'll still make his money, but, go out and get me a weapon. And then Jalen Ramsey, that dude, just another alpha. And I love DeMarcus Ware. I love Sean Lee, but those dudes were the type of guys that punch you in the mouth, but then they'd help you up. And I love rooting for defenses that kind of punch you in the mouth, and then you try to reach out their hand, and they just look at you and walk away. And that's what Micah Parsons is, and that's what Jalen Ramsey is. It's an edge. And I'm looking – dude, I would welcome that with open arms. So hopefully that happens. Speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, I'm on the clock in our 2022 two-round mock for the Dallas Cowboys. And in the second round, I'm going to select. So, Joe, if you're listening right now, you can take this man from me. And it's Steve Avila from TCU, offensive lineman. Going to slide him in there. Connor McGovern's gone. Tyler Johnson's the offensive tackle for the future. Put Steve Avila in at left guard. We're decent at center with Tyler Biotish. We still got Zach Martin. Terrence Steele's coming back. Brian, immediate reaction. Steve Avila, is that a decent landing spot for Dallas?
Plug and play guy, right? Can play left guard, play right guard, could play center for you if you need be. I obviously it's a great fit for any team. I think any team would be good, a guy like Avila. I know he's probably going to be definitely in that late second, third round range. So the value's also there for Avila. So yeah, I like the pick.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Brian, I'm going to keep you all right on the main screen here. We're going to move on to NFL Combine discussion. This is what you're here for. We're here for the knowledge, right? So before we get into what did happen, I kind of want to get a peek behind the curtains. Who were you most disappointed, offensive skill wise, who didn't compete at the combine? You were like, man, I wish I would have seen them either run a 40. So it doesn't even have to be just not compete in all activities. It could be one activity or two activity. I know some people were disappointed that Jackson Smith-Njigba didn't run a 40, but then he went out and he killed everything else. So I think he's fine. But who were you disappointed in that didn't compete?
I mean, I'll start at quarterback, and the easy answer here is Bryce Young, right? He didn't throw. Levis, Stroud, and Richardson all threw. I didn't, he seems like Bryce Young spent most of the last 2 weeks, eating every piece of junk food he could find and drinking nothing but water because he knew he wasn't going to work out. So he added 15 pounds to his frame.
He was eating deep fried draft.
he was eating deep fried everything is what he was doing. Running backs, there was a couple that I thought, I don't know why they didn't work out. It could have been injury. I'm not sure. Israel Abanikanda from Pitt. I would have liked to just seen him time. I think his speed is legit. I can't wait to see what he does at his pro day.
I agree with that one.
Kendre Miller, TCU, is another that I would have liked to have seen out on the field just because I know I'm maybe lower on him than a lot of others because I'm not I feel like I've got more study to do on him than I do some of the other running backs. So he's a guy I kind of would have liked to seen. Tight end, the obvious answer is Dalton Kincaid, and I know that's an injury, and we might not get to see him test at all. I don't know. I think he had a back injury. I'm not sure. I think he's dealing with a back or something issue. And the only wide receiver that didn't do anything at all that I kind of wanted to see, and it's kind of maybe a day 3 guy, is CJ Johnson from East Carolina. Just because I like those wide receivers that are just thick built running backs, essentially, like a James Washington, Deebo Samuel, those guys. And I think CJ Johnson fits that mold of a guy who catches the ball as a receiver, but looks like a running back in the open field. And that's a guy I kind of would have liked to have seen to get his numbers in. So see him in his pro day.
He's not a separator, right? He's a body control guy who knows how to adjust his body at the last second. So he knows he's not creating a lot of separation, but he knows how to track the ball. He knows how to throw the defender off, and he also knows how to adjust to make sure that passing window is bigger than it could have been, you know. And then he's massive. So I'm putting together. So I did my top 15 wide receivers, and I'm also doing my sleepers. And he's one of my top 5 sleepers. But I worry. You know, and Shane knows this. So Shane, if you listen or if you end up listening to this show, I love big physical receivers, but I've been turned off from them over the last 5 or 6 years because the big physical receivers I like didn't pan out. Like Kelvin Harmon, I'm still scarred. Kelvin Harmon, NC State. I thought he was going to come to the NFL and he was going to be a dude. Hakeem Butler. So CJ Johnson is more physical after the catch. But as far as overall athleticism, you know,
would have liked to have seen it.
Yeah. What's that, Moon? Go ahead, my guy.
I love it what y'all talking about with CJ Johnson. I'll be honest with y'all and tell y'all, you know, when I'm looking into the day, I'm like, yo, it's combine day. Friday was the day that I was looking forward to. I wanted to see the DBs. Because, you know, after we saw the 40 times and stuff early on by the linebackers and stuff, I'm like, man, these DBs got to run crazy. So I'm just excited for the on-field drills. It hurt me to my core to see Devin Witherspoon not be able to participate in the combine. And that stung, man. It was a medical evaluation that happened on Thursday, and he basically underwent an MRI. And he talked about it. He said it's just a minor thing. It wasn't any point of taking any chances or any risk or anything. But for as much hype as Witherspoon was getting, and the hype is warranted because you could just look at his tape.
Especially after you saw all the other Illinois players and how they tested.
Exactly.
Oh, the Browns, yeah. Those dudes are chiseled out of stone. Well, let's. I mean, I want to try to keep it to offensive skill guys, but I'm with you.
That one.
How about Forbes coming in at 166? So I'm not now. This is, you know, I'm kind of cheating, but I'm leading the show, so I can cheat a little bit. This isn't somebody who didn't compete, but this is somebody who came in 166 pounds,
and he looked every bit of that too.
Bizarre, like, you know, he ran like a 4.34. I believe, something low, like very fast, but you know, I think that drops him significantly, like not to the 4th round, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's at the end of the 2nd, early 3rd now, when he was in talks probably between 30 and 40, right, Brian? Would you say? So where do you see him going now?
I almost feel like he's and maybe it's also a product of the depth of the cornerback class as well. That,
come on, Brian, save me.
When you have some questions, you're going to see him get pushed down, I think, behind some of these other guys into the 3rd round. Clark Phillips is another one because of
Clark Phillips.
And
5'9".
his production is
5'9"
great. But his 5'9" and short, 29-inch arms, and he tested like crap.
Yeah,
he was probably. I think he the worst.
You say crap? I don't know.
He was the worst. He had the worst RAS of any corner that tested.
That has to account for something.
Yeah, it'd be 5'9". That's brutal. I tweeted out before they all got measurements that Clark Phillips is the spot on my football team, even if he comes in under 5'11". And then I had to adjust the tweet, even if he comes in under 5'10". But I have to look at the RAS. We're actually going to have Platt on at MathBomb on the Twitter to talk about RAS on the clock Thursday night. Moon will be there, so that'll be very interesting. So all right, I love all these guys who disappointed. I think Forbes, someone's going to get a steal. Like Trent McDuffie. When did Trent McDuffie go last year?
2026.
It was like late first or early
which is
second.
later, like
21.
All right, so I don't think Forbes. So Forbes is. I think McDuffie was a better prospect than he went. Right, I think he could have been a top 10 pick. I think somebody got a steal with McDuffie. I think someone's going to get a steal with Forbes.
And Forbes, that 166 doesn't show up on the tape either because he plays physical.
Right.
So it may not bother some teams.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
I mean, with the way things are going, like I like you said, man, I don't know how much it just have to be that specific team's their cup of tea, I should say, for him. But it could push him down. But it's a lot of corners.
Right. That's the thing. Someone's going to get a steal. Someone who needs a corner.
Of corners, man.
Yeah, because he can play. And you know what? Like you put him into an NFL program where they're gonna know weight's an issue. They're going to keep an eye on it. They're going to try to find out what weight he could still manage to do, what he does great. Somebody puts that much time and effort into him, they'll figure out. They'll at least try to get that dude up to somewhere in the mid 170s. All right, let's talk quarterbacks. All right, we got Bryce Young coming in, 5'10", 204, not running. Probably going to drop weight. Then he's going to run at his pro day, I would assume. Got Anthony Richardson not throwing well, but doing everything else elite. 6'4", 244, set the combine record for quarterbacks, right, with 40.5-inch vertical, 4.44 40-yard dash. CJ Stroud lights it up passing. Now he's back in the conversation for QB1. So, Hendon Hooker, you mentioned him, Moon. Obviously, he didn't get to work out. So that's, he was able to do interviews, but he's expected to be able to play by the start of the 2023 season. So there's a lot going on with these quarterbacks. Will Levis, we don't really know what we're going to get with him now. With that, with him that really not producing there. So what are our thoughts with quarterbacks going into the NFL draft after the combine? Brian, I'm going to let you take this first, man.
I haven't finalized it yet. My new board's coming out Friday. I have a feeling that I'm going to settle with Stroud at 1.
You good?
But it's going to be 1A, 1B with Young, and then a distant third will be Hooker for me.
It's just crazy to me how much Will Levis has dropped. I mean, he threw he's got a strong arm. He was there, but it's almost like he's just an afterthought. Richardson completely passed him.
I think they did him a disservice by making them go by the spelling of their name. Because if he was in that second group of quarterbacks and you see him next to the Stroud and the Richardson and Levis is in there too, I think that's what we would really have a lot of talking points, because you could be able to compare between it. I mean, think about how fun that was on Saturday watching it, like seeing all of them throw. If you add Will Levis into that second group, and then let the lower tier guys that's not really getting a lot of buzz right now, that actually did kind of good. Right. Let them just own the first group. I think that could have helped. With him just being around it. So now you're bringing it out because you surrounded with more talents. But during that first group exercise, it's like everybody was looking and, Will Levis is throwing. And I'm like, really? I'm trying to look at Jake Hayner right now.
Hey, you're the Atlanta Falcons, right? You're on the clock. Stroud's the only quarterback gone. Who are you taking?
Bryce Young.
For sure. You're not concerned about the size at all?
No.
Okay. What about you, Brian?
Absolutely not concerned whatsoever.
Okay. How about that? You heard it there. So Bryce Young's consensus too.
That's if I have to go quarterback.
That's for the sake of that question. And then it's Richardson and so Richardson didn't throw well. And I was listening to Dane Brugler today on The Athletic. It wasn't his regular show. He was on another show, and he's talking about Richardson and not really throwing well. He was saying, Cam Newton didn't throw well either. But then he also mentioned Cam Newton absolutely carried Auburn to a national championship. So he didn't throw well, but he lit the college football world on fire. So yeah, Richardson's coming in and doing a lot of the athletic stuff he did, but he does not have the resume. Like no, he doesn't even belong in the same conversation as Cam Newton. So somebody,
Here's a fun stat about that.
go ahead, go
I
ahead.
think your listeners will enjoy this. How many other Auburn players on their offensive team the year that Auburn won the national championship with Cam Newton played in the NFL? Not started a game, played in the NFL. Played a single game in the NFL.
Oh, that was the year they played Oregon, right?
One.
Who was
One
it?
other player on their
it a wide
entire
receiver?
offensive team played a game in the NFL other
Was
than
it a
Cam
wide
Newton.
receiver?
I think it was a wide receiver. I can't remember his name. One player.
It's crazy. So yeah,
Cannon on his back.
Yeah, absolutely bananas. All right, so we're saying Stroud passed Young. That's the big thing that occurred. Stroud passed Young, but I think before the combine, it was pretty much Bryce Young number one. Stroud was in the discussion with Levis and Richardson, at least from what I see and what I heard. And now it's Young and Stroud are in their own conversation with Stroud ahead, and then Levis and Richardson are in another tier, right? And then you got guys like Hooker, and then a lot of people are on Tanner McKee, out of Stanford, and some people are on Hayner. Who do you have? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I know people don't want to hear this, man, but Jake Hayner and Tyson Bagent, they just keep impressing me. Like, you saw him at the Senior Bowl and everything, and I'm like, okay, this is one thing. But then it's like some time passes, and I was really impressed with Tyson and Jake at the combine.
Right.
I like them.
The great thing is we're going to get to see. Like when they're drafted, they're going to have to go to camp. They're going to have to compete. So all these guys, whether you like it or not, they're going to get their chance to earn a spot and make some noise. That's the beautiful thing. So let's talk some running backs, okay? So I know we talked about Gibbs a little earlier. You drafted Gibbs for your Atlanta Falcons. We talked about Abanikanda not necessarily not being able to compete out there, not getting it done at the combine. I was really looking forward to him. So Gibbs comes in at 5'9", but he's 199 pounds. People are happy. I see two conversations going on. People very happy with his weight, and then people disappointed with his height. So it's like they're on two different sides of the wall. People content with his 44.36. That's strong. Still seeing him at, late, like early second round conversation. I still think he's a dude, but I'm thinking some people are starting to overthink it because of his height. Zach Charbonnet. So we know Bijan Robinson's obviously the dude. Charbonnet seems like, he comes in, runs a 4.54, but he seems super, super safe, right? He had his 8.74 RAS, his relative athletic score. Very strong, explosive with the 37-inch vert, the 10-foot broad. So we got, what were your guys' thoughts overall, Brian? Again, I'll pass it to you first. What were your thoughts on the running back class from the combine? Who are some guys you think are risers? Who are some guys you think are fallers? And who are some guys that you think, I'm not really concerned about this or that?
I tweeted out during the combine, I've never been more disappointed in a 4.3, whatever 40 than David Achane's.
Because he thought it was going to be like 4.2.
I thought he was going to go 4.21, something like that.
That's how I felt about Jalen Hyatt.
But I still like him as a player. I think he's a better between the tackles runner than a lot of people are going to give him credit for, just because they see the size at 185 and they see the speed and they think he can't do it. But if you go back and watch the tape from this year, I mean, a lot of his carries came between the tackles. So I think Achane is going to, he's going to be RB3 for me, just ahead of Charbonnet. Who I think, like you said, I believe is safe. Tajay Spears, I've got now around 5, I think.
Love it.
Just ahead of Chase Brown. I've got.
You got Brown above Abanikanda?
Yes.
Nice.
For now. Yeah. I got to see to see the testing. I got to see the numbers on Abanikanda.
Right. So I interrupt you. Keep going. I'm sorry.
A guy I've kind of fallen off on a little bit that I was a little higher on, Kenny McIntosh from Georgia, kind of pulled him back just a little bit.
See,
and Sean Tucker, man, it's like I love his feet, but like what happened, man? I don't know. He's kind of fallen all the wayside.
Yeah, he's a track star, right? Tucker's like he's got track pedigree, like legitimate straight line speed. I heard the Dolphins are very intrigued in him. I think I would like to see him in that system with McDaniels, just downhill, zone scheme, find the crease, and just boom, take off. That would be very interesting. That'd be a good fit, in my opinion.
And I'll say if the Bengals don't invest in a guy on day 2, because I don't think they'll do it on day 1, Keaton Mitchell, East Carolina, is a guy I would love to see them get in that room
Yeah, speed.
in
Lot of
round
speed.
5 or 6.
That brings some explosiveness, more explosiveness to that offense. Home run hitter, great elusiveness. He can hit his top end speed like so quickly. This burst is really impressive. So
Moon, who were some running backs that caught your eye at the combine?
running backs that caught my eye at a combine. Um, it's kind of tough, man.
Yeah, well, I know, Bijan basically just stole the show. And Brian, I meant to say this earlier when he was talking about, Abonaconda not competing. I hate to keep going back to this name. Bengals might need a running back, right? They might need a running back.
We're talking about
And
what's
the
going on with Joe
Cowboys,
Mixon.
yeah, well, in general, I mean, they're letting him walk regardless, whatever is going on
Yeah.
there. The Cowboys are going to let go of Zeke. They franchised Pollard. They're going to be drafting a running back. So I'm okay with him not competing and maybe him slipping a little bit, because Brian, it might end up helping out one of our rosters. But I know, Moon, you were talking about Bijan saying something about Barry Sanders. So why don't you get into that?
Oh yeah, he was talking about it at the combine. How he got his inspiration from Barry Sanders, and it stood out to me. It was just like a little tidbit while I was listening that stuck out to me, and I think because he models his game after it. When Bijan came in at 215, I was drooling, Brian. I was drooling. I said 215.
Right.
And he moves like that. His testing scores is pretty good. I mean, we already pretty much everybody has him as a consensus RB1 in this draft, so I don't think he could have hurt his case. Unless
A
he
lot
just
of
had
people,
like
he's going like top 15, top 16, and a lot of mocks now. A lot, like before it was, is he going to go in the first? And now you're seeing him go in the first half of these mocks.
yeah. And then like, listen, about 2-3 months ago, we thought Nino was crazy to have Philadelphia take him at like pick number 10.
Yeah.
And like now it doesn't seem that like too far fetched. But I put the point about Barry Sanders because how he moves, how he bends, like it reminds me of that. And I wouldn't have that as my comp, but for him to be comping himself to Barry,
Right.
that let me know like where he sees himself in his mind and where he gets his inspiration from.
I've said, like I said, LaDainian Tomlinson.
That's your comp.
Yeah, the way he uses that stiff arm, his ability to catch out of the backfield. I see a lot of LT. Playing down in Texas, LT was TCU. Let's move on to wide receivers. So Jackson Smith-Njigba doesn't run his 40. Doesn't matter. Kills it with the 3 cone. He was the 6.57 is the best in the last 10 years for a wide receiver in the 3 cone. Only 3 receivers have had a better 3 cone than Jackson Smith-Njigba ever, at the combine. He runs 3.92 20-yard shuttle, number 1 for wide receiver. So what does Jackson Smith-Njigba do well? He's excellent at getting open in the slot. All right, like excellent and short yardage, short area burst, elusiveness. Add that to his route tree. I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold. On the other end, though, Quentin Johnson only comes in at 208 at 6'4". It's a little concerning, a little slim, big, explosive, but I worry a little bit. And then also with Jordan Addison, 4.49. I thought he was going to
talk about that.
I thought he was going to be a little more explosive than that, to be honest. What he's known for is the route running. But when you got guys, I think Josh Downs is being overlooked. In our mock going right now, it's at the end of the 2nd round, and he's not even picked yet. I like Tank Dell, but I wouldn't take Tank Dell over Josh Downs. There's a few guys I wouldn't have taken over Josh Downs. I think he's a phenomenal wide receiver. I think people are overlooking him. And when you got guys like Josh Downs and Zay Flowers with how explosive they are, I know Jordan Addison's an elite route runner, but I wouldn't be surprised if both of those guys end up having better careers than Jordan Addison. So Jalen Hyatt, obviously, you mentioned this, Moon. Said he had tightness in his hamstring, but he still came in at a 4.4.
To me,
speed.
I know people. I know I said earlier that I was disappointed, but like I think we always like based on what we saw on film, and he's always open. I'm like, man, he,
4-2-8,
he gotta be like at least a 4-2-8,
4, yeah,
maybe pushing like high four
right.
threes. So to see that, I was like, okay. But then I saw how he compared to the rest of the wide receivers in that. I was like, okay, that's not like as bad as I is in my head. But for him to leave with the hamstring, we're gonna have to wait until pro day happens in order to see like I guess get more insight on what his official time is
Right.
for him. But it's too many wide receivers to talk about, honestly,
Well,
because like like you said, Tank Dell, I was disappointed in Tank
go
because it
on.
was a lot of hype after the Senior Bowl, and I'm like, man, he's about to absolutely shred this combine. And he ran the same 40 time as at least what I saw last as Jordan Addison.
Yeah.
And I thought he was gonna be faster, given where his weight is and everything like that. But
Right.
his on
I'm,
the
I'm
field
pulling him up now.
portions, his on the field portions were it left more to be desired. Cause I'm like, is he not all the way there? Um, that's what stood out to me from the wide receiver list. I was happy that Darius Davis ended up clocking in a great time in his 40. I talked to him at the Senior Bowl. He was talking about how he was already thinking about the combine and how he had to prep for him in his 40 time. Our guy Trey Palmer, uh, he talked to Nino and said that he was going to run 4.43. He came in clutch, coach.
Right.
Came in clutch with a 4.3.
Yeah.
So like those are some feel good moments.
I would have liked to have seen Puka run a 3 cone. You
Mm,
know what I mean? Like that
yeah.
guy, I think Puka is a guy. He's another guy I mentioned my sleepers I'm going to be posting up on the website. I liked him at the Senior Bowl, but he was done after
Yeah.
day one, right? That down in Mobile, killed it. He left. With him, I'm not so much concerned with the 40. I
Mhm.
think he's more twitched up than Najigba. I think he'd be a little bit faster than him. But I also think he's another guy who does a lot of his work in short area bursts. And I would have loved to seen his 3 cone, his 10-yard split, his 20-yard shuttle. So I was a little disappointed that we didn't get to see him compete. But Brian, what was your overall thoughts on this wide receiver class and how it went for them?
I'm with you on Quentin Johnston. I thought he maybe cut weight to try to run, and then he didn't run. So
Yeah.
that was interesting to me. Was maybe surprised by Marvin Mims, how well he tested a little bit. Saw his numbers. I thought Rashee Rice tested well. He's not the biggest guy.
I agree.
I'm
I
sorry,
was
not the
actually
fastest guy, but
I was happy with his 40.
yeah. And I'm Josh Downs, like you said, I think is slipping a little bit, maybe farther than he should. How disappointing is Keyshawn Butte?
Oh my God. Well,
Oh
not
my
not listen,
gosh, bro.
not it's not even the disappointing. It's how unpredictable is he?
Yeah.
One of his 40s was like so those 40s were almost because one of them was what, like 4.65 and one was 4.5. So look at the drastic difference. Those 40s, immediately when I saw the time difference, it's a microcosm of his playing career. Like there's it's like yin and yang, like two opposite sides of the coin. It just feeds into the fact that he is unpredictable, right? What do you
Yeah.
when does he go? I mean, he might not be picked till like this. Yeah.
He would have been better off just staying home and just rejecting the invite.
Going to pro day.
Just going to pro day. Just hey, I don't need to come.
Man, and unless he was able to interview with somebody and make somebody believe. That's the only thing that we didn't see that he could have done right. And if his interviews weren't good, then I agree. The dude should have stayed home. So very shocking.
Are
Very
we
shocking.
sleeping on Cedric Tillman?
I think we are.
Tell us why.
I think we are.
I mean, he didn't have to take this year because of the injuries, and Jalen Hyatt kind of took over.
This is Nino's guy. Nino, he beat me up because I had Tyler Scott ahead of him at my rankings.
But 6'3", 213. I mean, he had the 4.5, 440, but the rest of his numbers were good.
Yeah.
I think Cedric Tillman, we might be sleeping on him, and he ends up having a big rookie impact in this as a late second, early third round pick.
My only knock on Tillman is, and I compared him to Hyatt, and when I talked to Nino about this, I don't mean that they're similar in how they get open. he's, Hyatt's a slot guy, stretcher, but I also think that in the Tennessee offense, when I watched Tillman, it was a lot of vertical, it was a lot of comeback, it was a lot of posts. Like I didn't really see an expanded route tree. So I also saw my knocks on Hyatt were that he's schemed open a lot, and I also saw a lot of instances where Tillman was just a better athlete or was just schemed open. So do we think he has the route tree to come into the NFL and be a true X and get open on his own without needing the offense to kind of get him open?
That's a question that we could ask about a lot of these receivers in some of these offenses, like the Josh Heupel that runs, and like because you could say the same thing about the Baylor offenses and stuff like that. Because that was a big question about Denzel Mims. Obviously, that's bore fruit as we've gone. Last receiver I'll talk about, and we move on because I know Shane has been hyping him up all season as this year's Christian Watson, and that's Andre Yashivas from Princeton.
You saw his hair at the combine?
Oh man, how about his hair at the Senior Bowl? I mean, that he went from one beautiful hair day to another beautiful hair day. So hats off to whoever's making his hair decisions.
Yeah, tremendous athletic score he had from the combine the other day. So Yashivas was probably maybe third round. We'll see him come off the board potentially, but I thought he had a great combine.
Yeah, I think also I haven't seen his numbers yet, but when we're talking about Tillman, like my opposite of Tillman is Michael Wilson. I don't think Michael Wilson's as physically gifted as Tillman, but his routes, just everything he does, like as a wide receiver, I feel like he's a guy who's not getting enough love. And because he's not necessarily, he doesn't have the explosion. He had a lot of, time missed in college due to injury. Tillman had time missed. So I really like Michael Wilson. I'm excited for him going forward. What were his numbers? I'm pulling them up right now.
4.5. He had a 4.58, but he had a 1.50 split.
Okay. All right. So and Tillman came in at 4.54, right?
Yes.
So not too much slower. Great hands. Good route with him. Everything he does is smooth. So
their verticals and broad jumps were very much pretty similar.
Right. So it'll be interesting to track both of them and see how they pan out and see who the NFL likes more. But I think either of those teams, you'll be happy.
It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Moon.
No, I was just thinking about from the fantasy perspective. Yeah. Like, let's say Tillman goes ahead of his draft capital is higher than let's say Tillman and Rashid Rice's draft capital is higher than a Josh Downs or a Tank Dell.
Right.
Or, then it puts up that question that people have really been kind of pushing them off to the wayside. Tillman, that is. And also
Rice.
Rashid.
100%.
After Senior Bowl. But like they've been pushing them away, but you're gonna have to elevate them back up in those conversations because they're gonna have that draft capital.
So draft capital, but I also take into account landing spot. So even if the draft capital is good, I want to see where you are, and I want to see what I think of your offense. So this is the best part of like making our projections and then having them all be thrown to shit when they get drafted and they're a running back who's going to be in a split running back backfield. And Brian doesn't have to worry about this because Brian's not really into the fantasy. So he's like, man, I'm just going to grade my players.
I hear you. I hear you, Mom, but...
Yeah. He's not stressing it one bit because then he's got another class he gets to worry about after this draft class is over. I want to touch on the tight end position before we wrap this thing up, man. We were going to touch on some of our mock draft, but you know what? I think we're running a little close to 60 minutes. ToiletsTitles.com. Brian helped us with the mock draft. Moon was in there. We got about 16 people doing this. It's going to be a 2-round mock draft. We did one I want to say 3 or 4 weeks ago, and then we wanted to wait till post-combine. So you're going to want to get in there and check that out. So again, ToiletsTitles.com under mock drafts. So let's finish this up with probably one.
Can we talk about the big guys?
Well, that's it. That's probably the biggest performer. Like, no pun intended, at the combine, Darnell Washington, 6'7", 265 pounds. People were like, hey, at that size, I'm okay if he runs like a 4.8. Comes in and runs a 4.64. And then he had a 4.08 shuttle, which was the third fastest for all tight ends. This dude is an absolute house. Now you're hearing people compare him to Rob Gronkowski, which is like, that's tight end royalty. So I know you wanted to talk about this dude, Moon. So Moon, why don't you talk about Darnell Washington? And then Brian, why don't you take us through the tight end class when he's done? So go ahead, Moon.
He ran a 4.64 40-yard dash, but he had
about 10 steps.
He had a 10-yard split of 1.57, which is crazy. vertical leap 31 inches. But since he's so huge, like, that's respectable. 10'2" broad jump. And like you said about his shuttle time, I just think that he looked smooth. When it came to my favorite part was the blocking. You could tell which tight ends are accustomed to blocking and which ones that are not. You could tell which ones are the pass catchers versus the ones that's not. But during the sled drills, you could tell. And Darnell Washington just moved the sled with just effortless. It was almost like, is he trying? But I had to remember, like, you see the other guys trying to push the sled, and they weren't nearly as made it look effortless. But he had 11-inch hands. Like, I know there was some inconsistencies and stuff when it comes to catching some passes, but like there's also some great moments and stuff too, because he had that one hand twirling catch, contorting your body in midair like that on the sideline.
Yeah, poster.
And
That's like a poster catch. Yeah,
poster type catch in the drills when they were working on red zone. So, like, I loved him. He came into the combine with like a lot of people having a lot of question marks about him, but I think he left with probably one of the biggest leaps or biggest jumps.
He was picked first tight end taken in our mock
in our mock
post combine. Big jump.
Huge jump. Like I can't say enough about him. Like I'm very interested for him as a blocker. I already know what he is and what he did at Georgia, but they was talking about it during the broadcast about how Georgia's tight end room is just so deep that you calling down there calling for Darnell Washington and they pick up the phone, think you talking about Brock Bowers.
Right.
So it's like it just shows the amount of talent. But
it reminds me of Clemson when Clemson had Watkins and Hopkins. Like, they think you're calling for Watkins, you're calling for Hopkins, or vice versa. I know there's a lot of situations where there's two dudes in the room, but that's just the first one that came to my mind. But that he is a riser. Jaguars took him in our mock. They want to pair up Evan Ingram.
That was Darnell.
Yeah, they took Darnell to go with Ingram. Like he's thinking.
I'll tell you this, Coach.
Go ahead.
Laporta looked good to me.
Yeah,
I like Laporta. And it's tough, like Brian said. I was kind of sad that Dalton Kincaid couldn't work out, because given where we were, the tight end class, I know we saw a lot of them. Kuntz, what is his name? Kuntz.
Zach Kuntz, yeah. Kuntz, out of Old Dominion.
All right. No, I mean, people knew where he was coming into it, but then he had a good showing. There's some good tight ends.
Dude looks like, if you look at his combine photo, so anybody go to NFL.com, look up Zach Kuntz, look at if you've seen Beauty and the Beast, the cartoon, this dude looks like the human version of Beast when he becomes a human. Like, please look at the picture and tell me I'm lying, because if they're going to do a live action of this film again, you cast this guy. Like, it's like Disney generated Zach Kuntz. He's a fake human being.
Hey,
40-yard dash.
Zach Charbonnet looks like a cartoon character.
Yeah, like, well, this dude, like, man, so please, someone comment that you've seen this, you've seen that movie, and you're like, yes, I see it. But anyway, 4.55, 40 for Kuntz. 40-inch vert, 10'8" broad jump. So coming out of Old Dominion, 6'7". He is another dude who, like, where the hell are these 6'7" tight ends coming from? 255 pounds. Brian, what tight ends did it for you at the combine?
It'd be easier to say which ones didn't.
True.
Okay, you can say that. Say that.
I was really hoping that Darnell Washington, he was a guy I liked for the Bengals at 28. I don't think he's going to make it there now. Because as of right now, they have no tight ends of note under contract on the roster. So they're going to have to do something there at some point. But we talked about Darnell Washington. You talked about Zach Kuntz. I really wish he had offered anything as a blocker. Right now, he's just more injured Mike Gesicki at this point. So Michael Mayer is still my number one tight end. The problem was he just happened to test with all these other guys, and by comparison, his testing numbers look pedestrian compared to everybody else. But the Notre Dame offense went through Michael Mayer for the last 3 years. Their entire offense went through him. You can't say that about, outside of maybe Kincaid, you can't say that about any of these other tight ends. and their offenses. Mayer's probably the most balanced of all the tight ends here. He gets himself open despite what you would say is a limited athlete. I still say he's the best tight end in this class. But Washington is great. Kincaid going to be a bit older of a prospect. I think he's going to be 24 maybe as a rookie. So we got to look at that. Laporta is great. He's probably the best after the catch of any of these tight ends. I think
so smooth.
And I just don't know how Iowa is so mediocre with all the athletes they have on their team. It blows my mind. Luke Musgrave, you got the injury concerns with him, but he's also a tremendous athlete. Tucker Kraft tested great.
Man. I heard like quietly, like teams are in love with Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, what he met with like 15 or 16 teams.
Like team. So I guess that's not very quiet if there's that many teams. But
the word is out.
Teams are. He is going to be a consolation prize for teams that aren't ready to. Because I posted a tweet earlier in the day. I wonder if the fact that there are so many strong tight ends is going to push them to go to these tight ends to going later than they should go, because teams are going to be willing to wait. Like teams might not be as interested to take them where they should go because they can wait. And there's probably like 4 or 5 other tight ends that they'd be comfortable getting, like very comfortable getting.
Like Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan is a guy I think is going to go later than some of these other guys that you said would be. Will Mallory from Miami. Cameron Latu from Alabama didn't work out. I think he's going to be a great tight end too in the league, but we didn't get to see him test. And you could go further down into
Payne Durham. Payne Durham's an interesting tight end to me.
Hunter Lipke from North Dakota State, probably more of a fullback, H-back, but I mean, he's going to be a guy that's going to be on an NFL roster and make a lot of points. Davis Allen from Clemson. I mean, we can go on and on. Britton Strange from Penn State's not terribly bad. And then you can even go into late day 3 with some guys that like Kyle Patterson from Air Force. I think is a solid player as well, who's been injured, was at the combine but didn't test.
Excellent. You think it's harder to separate them into like the actual rankings more than it is to place them in tiers for the tight end group? Yeah. How many do you think that's going to be in the first round on day 1? 3?
Minimum 2.
2. Washington and Mayer?
I think so.
Okay.
I know Mayer went pretty late in the mock draft there, the T2T mock draft there. I think he went around 47 or 48.
They was sipping my Kool-Aid because I was trying to tell them Luke Musgrave was better.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is, it's like, really, what are you looking for? There's somebody who excels. Mayer is like a jack of all trades, and he's good at all trades. And then there's some guys who might not be as well-rounded as he is, but you want a guy who you can put out in the slot. You want to have a pass-heavy offense. So there's just whatever you're looking for in a tight end. There's one available who fits that mold. So you're lucky if
Coach.
you go ahead.
No, keep going.
I was just gonna say you're lucky if you had a guy like Dalton Schultz that you franchise tagged the year before. Now you're not bringing him back, and you might need a tight end, and you might want to wait till the 2nd or 3rd round to get one. If you happen to be that team, it's a good year to be that team. That's all I'm saying. So go ahead, Mo.
I want to know how you feel, Mr. Brian, about the offensive lineman group. I know there's a lot of storylines going in. Peter Skoronski's arm length and whether that's going to be a problem or not. You got Paris Johnson and where his athleticism is compared to Broderick Jones and how he tested and everything. He had the other guys like Blake Freeland. We have some crazy numbers. And then you got Voorhees towards ACL and then pushed out 38 reps on the bench, highest of the combine. What's some news and notes on the what stood out to you for the O-lineman?
There was one number missing from Blake Freeland, and I think that's pretty much sums up where I have him in my pecking orders. He didn't bench.
Oh,
I don't think he's not strong at the point there. I think that's going to be his big issue. But no, as far as the offensive tackle class goes, I think Skoronski. I think me and Shane are going to meet about it tomorrow night. I think we're going to move him inside on our position board. I think the 32-inch arm length is going to doom him in. I think Broderick Jones might be OT1 for me now going forward with Paris Johnson coming in at 2. when I reset everything. So that's kind of where I'm at with the offensive tackle board. I really like Darnell Wright as well from Tennessee, but I think he's almost pure right tackle only, if you want to classify that. The interior offensive line group, I still like Osiris Torrance, but you could talk me. And once we move Skoronski to inside interior offensive line, Skoronski will be number one there, and then Torrance, I'll probably still have it too.
Okay.
On the
what
interior,
about Smits, John Michael?
Smits will be three for me, just ahead of Avila and then Cody Mock.
Excellent. All right. Well, this was absolutely incredible, man. Brian, I appreciate you. I reached out to you this weekend, late notice, and you were like, man, of course I'm ready to go on. And you brought it. All right.
I'll tell anybody if Belarus Radio called me and said, Brian, come on at 3:00 in the morning, I'll set an alarm and get up and talk draft.
I love it, man. The ambassador, the true ambassador of Mobile, Alabama. Go check out draftcountdown.com at Deep Fried Draft on the Twitter. This dude knows his stuff. Brian, you said you're going to be meeting with Shane, I'm assuming virtually. Yes. All right, because Shane's up in Pennsylvania. You're down in Alabama. And you guys are going to be doing, making some adjustments. I know Shane just posted an updated mock draft. I think he had A-Chain going to the Dallas Cowboys in the second round. I enjoyed that. I've enjoyed the big board. So what do you guys have going out right now? Like, I know this is peak season for you, but what are some recent things that anybody listening to Toilets and Titles or the CFB Nation should go to draftcountdown.com and check out?
Yeah, you mentioned Shane's mock draft. He released a 7-round mock on Monday. Go check that out now. A lot of other people have, so you don't want to get left behind. We're finishing up our combine. Shane posted his combine storylines today. I'll have my 10 biggest risers from the combine. That'll go up tomorrow morning. And then Friday and Saturday, myself and Shane will both be releasing our updated top 300 overall prospects.
Can you tease who's number one on your list of top 10 risers? Or
I did one per position group. So I kind of did a little cheating there.
Is there any chance any of you guys are going to end up at the draft? Are you trying to get credentials for that?
I will not.
Okay. All right. Well, if anybody from Draft Countdown, CFB Nation, Toilets Titles, we're trying to get over there. So we'd love to link up. But if not, we'll link up again in the future. Everybody, however you're watching us, again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, go check out the CFB Nation. Tons of content over there. That's our college platform. Oh, Coach, wait. What's up?
We would be doing him a disservice if we came over here and didn't talk about the Gamecocks. What you think about your Gamecocks?
Darius Rush, Cam Smith are very athletic, aren't they?
Yes. Hey, that's all I need to say. Shout out to Gamecocks Nation.
And Zach Pickens, too, for that matter.
Yeah. There it is. So we're throwing in plugs right now. It's the end of the show. So shout out to the Gamecocks. Hey. We got to plug that. And everybody tune in Thursday night. On the Clock is doing a special. All right. Moon's going to be there because he's in there with me, the governor, the mayor, the Moon Man. Everybody's there. We're doing 2 episodes. We're going to bring in Mark Schofield to talk about quarterbacks. After that, we're bringing on Kent Lee Platt at Math Bomb, creator of the RAS. He's going to be come on after that. We're going to be talking. We're going to be asking him, man, tell us all about the RAS, how it was developed, some ups and downs. I want to know who were some players that performed and produced in spite of the RAS. Who were some guys that you were really high on, and then you saw the RAS, and then it showed out, and it was true. They actually didn't produce. So I want to know the ins and outs of the RAS, all right, the relative athletic score. So that's very important to me. I'm looking forward to checking it out because I was looking through all that. Like during the combine, that's Kent. Like I was getting notifications every time he posted one of those, man. So I'm looking forward to it. So that's it for Toilets and Titles this week. Again, we'll see you Thursday. Check out Toilets and Titles. Check out CFB Nation. Go check out draftcountdown.com. We'll catch you all later on. Take care.